Hello, Gary.
Hello, Guy. I just want to talk about this because people are wondering, what is this? Is this some sort of, Bond-esque device, or is it a new bum bag by Special or something?
Yeah, it is a new speciality. Yeah, Liam had one of these at Wembley the other night. It does look like it should have a sort of rocket launcher in it. For those who aren't watching, I've had a rotator cuff surgery on my arm. So I've got this. It does seem appropriate for today because I think it's the sort of thing that people would have worn to Blitz back in the day.
Yes, I let you have that, but no. I mean, yeah. So you can't play bass for a bit.
I can't play bass. No, I've actually had to cancel an album project I was going to do, which is really frustrating. Not yours. But...
No, it's lucky for everyone else, though.
Well, it is. Yes. In fact, I spoke to Zach Starkey the other day, and he said, "Oh, would you be able to play again?" And I went, "Yes." He went, "That's a shame."
What have you been up to? Because this is our first day back, isn't it? It's the start of the new term.
Yeah.
September.
September, yeah. Well, I've just been embracing country life as I was when we left off. If you remember, I was bell ringing, and
you were.
Since then, of course, that's off rest. But it's got worse. I've been paragliding.
What?
Yeah, I've had paragliding lessons. All sorts of stuff. Yeah, just being a country boy. What have you been doing?
I've been on holiday with my family. So I went to the Lake District and I climbed Scarfell Pike, highest mountain in England, which I love doing. Went down to the Scilly Isles, a very favourite spot of mine in Cornwall.
You and Harold Wilson.
Harold Wilson's buried there. I cycled.
You go to his grave every year, don't you? That's actually why you put flowers on it. Or you lay a Ganek smack on his grave.
Yeah, he's buried in this churchyard, and you know his grave because he's got his pipe is sticking up like a periscope out of the soil. No, we're in the Design Museum in South Ken. Is this South Ken officially, or Kensington? High Street
Kensington. Yeah, right next to Holland Park, and it's beautiful. It used to be the Commonwealth Institute, and I know this is actually the museum I come to the most in London because I have to stay just up the road, and they always have fantastic exhibits here. I'm doing a big old plug here. I mean, the last year they had a fantastic Tim Burton thing. There's been a Wes Anderson thing. It's great. And now it's you.
Well, it's not just me, but it's the Blitz Club. The club that it's a bar that we used to go to. We used to frequent in 1978 on a Tuesday night in Covent Garden in London, Great Queen Street. And a lot of stuff came out of it, and so there's an exhibition about that club, about what sort of went into creating it culturally in the 70s, all of the sort of moments of, obviously Bowie, sort of cabaret from 1920s Weimar Republic Germany, that influence, and punk, post-punk, and if this moment on a Tuesday night for a few months, between 78 and 79, maybe 80, created a lot that was successful in the 80s and helped to, a lot of people came out of that space and went on to become successful in design and dance and writing and television and obviously music, a lot of music. So the exhibition about this club opens September 20th and runs for about 7 months, and I think it's going to be really interesting. And the poster boy for this exhibition is Boy George.
Yeah,
it's a picture of him.
It is. That's got to hurt. No. Of course not.
No, I think if there was ever a poster boy for the Blitz Club, apart from Steve Strange, of course, one of the most visual people in there would have been. Actually, that is an issue that some people might have, that it isn't Steve Strange and Rusty Egan as the poster.
Well, yeah, but there's a nice thing, and we've talked about this a lot before, this whole thing about how all movements, certainly music-related movements, there's a club and there's a band with all of them. And it's, you are, but people say Blitz, you just go Spandau Ballet. That's the interesting thing. But George might well be the poster boy, but it's like, Culture Club aren't the Blitz band. Yeah, and because you did play there, right? Because we played. Really, it wasn't really a band venue.
It wasn't a band venue. It was. I don't think anyone in the room wanted to watch a band. To be honest, I think that was a great risk that we took. I mean, they were all about being the stars on the dance floor themselves, or lounging at the bar, or just hanging out in the loos. Everyone was the star, and they didn't want the lights to go down on them and turn and have to look at someone on a stage. Yeah, but we took that risk, and we did it twice actually. But there was definitely a sense of everyone else wanting to be successful. And that's what happened. And 47 years later, there's an exhibition about that club, and we thought we'd get George in and have a catch up with him. It was 5 years ago he was on the show, wasn't it?
Yeah, no, and I've got to say, and shout out to George for doing this, and for coming and talking to us really early on. Like I said, it was people like George are the reason that we're here today.
Yeah. Anyway, should we get him in?
Welcome to Rockonteurs.
It's 5 years since you came on last, and I can't believe how quickly that's gone. But
yeah, it was during the pandemic, I think, right?
It was, yeah.
It was around one of those breaks in the nightmare that we...
Well, you were one of our early guests, in fact, so you actually deserve a big thank you from us, because it was, we're still here because people like you stepped up.
I'll take all the credit.
It's great. But, I mean, you've done loads since then. I know you were talking about working with Tony Visconti at that period.
I have worked with Tony, actually. That was on a track for a movie that they didn't actually take our track at the end. They took the Rolling Stones. But I would like to work with Tony, but he's a bit expensive.
Yeah, yeah.
And the thing is, nowadays, you don't really need to spend loads of money making records. It's not expensive anymore unless you make it.
But you've just got an album out. I mean, it's SC18?
SC18, yeah. And I'm going to be putting out a few more albums quite soon as well, like one after the other. I've been stockpiling since the pandemic, because I had so much time on my hands during that period that I was in a bubble with my sort of co-writer and producer, this guy called Benny D. So we were able to just carry on, and we literally didn't stop, because that was the only thing that kept me sane, writing songs, and kind of went back into this whole thing of why do I make records? What was the reason? I still haven't worked it out, but I just enjoy it. I think it's the muscle, keeping that muscle going, writing stuff.
I heard it, lots of reggae, good
reggae, but I do dance. I do everything. I do whatever I feel like doing. I'm not really loyal to any genre, because I DJ, so I do dance stuff. You know what it's like? A lot of the things that you do don't get heard unless you're a hardcore fan. People think you're sitting at home knitting and listening to Karma Chameleon, which is so far from the truth. But that's what people think, because people can only reference you in past context. So they say, oh, you did this, you were that. So a lot of the time people, when they talk to me as if I don't exist. Oh, you were this and you were that. I'm like, no, I'm still that.
But you went to South Korea, didn't you? Just did some K-pop.
I went to South Korea, and to be honest with you, when they asked me, when I went on the first phone call with Apple TV, I was like, I'm not doing this. I'd put the phone down. I was like, what an awful idea. And then I got to talk to them. They paid me more money. And
what's it called, the show?
K-popped. And it was just like, really, in the end, it was like, oh, I'm going to go to South Korea. It'd be great, which it was. I had a brilliant time.
It is great. You didn't have to do any demon hunting then.
No, but, singing Karma Chameleon to me is like, yawn.
Yeah, you described it really badly, I saw the other day in the New York Post.
I said it was like sucking diarrhea through a wet sock, I think. Yeah.
But you can't really believe, I mean...
Well, yeah, I do.
Can you not put your head back into that boy?
Well, I do. Of course, I perform it all the time. I don't really have an issue with doing it live because you're playing to the fans. But sort of rolling it out for TV over and over is Yawnsville for me, because I'm a writer. I don't live in the past.
About the audience. But also, because when you're doing new stuff, you're not thinking, like you said, it seems to be it's stuff that just comes to you. You're not thinking, oh, I'd like to sort of make her this album or make her that album, or because you're thinking about some period.
I went off albums for years. I was like just releasing singles, but now I'm realizing that people love albums because it's like a book and you can kind of curate it. And actually, I've seen with SC18, the fans love the fact that you can play it, as a full album. There's a booklet. I've put it out on vinyl.
It was out on vinyl first, wasn't it?
Yeah, and actually, charted, which was, very surprising. I was like, oh, went in the top 40 for the first time in God knows how long, But I feel artists like, I don't know, want to put you in the same category, but artists like me, the business expects you to play by the old rules, but the old rules don't exist anymore. So I just really do my own thing, and I just kind of keep putting stuff out, keep writing. I don't really think about where it's going. I feel like it helps me to become a better writer. It helps me to enjoy what I do. I don't think about I should be doing this, because, the nostalgia thing is great and we use it when we need to and it's great. But if you do too much nostalgia, I think you can end up looking a bit sad. So I try to defy it.
Well, did you? He was on Broadway again, weren't you?
Yes.
Yeah, I've done that twice.
Twice since we spoke to you.
Yeah, I've done it
Because you
twice.
Broadway with Taboo years ago, right?
I did Broadway with Taboo for it wasn't a very long run in America, but I did Moulin Rouge last year and the year before. No, this year and the year before. And it was great, but and now I'm working on Taboo, the musical that I did, 20 years ago. I'm redoing that.
This is your story.
It's a story of kind of this, really.
Yeah,
it's
Blitz.
the sort of before fame, although at the moment we're not sure what it's going to be because it's going to be very different from the original one. I want to make it much more about who the people were, who Lee Barry was, who Marilyn is, who Philip Salon is. I'm turning him into an Uber bitch.
Yeah, but I remember because I think I said it on the first podcast when I went to one of the nights of Taboo. I think I went to the opening, and Philip was on stage, and of course everyone had to be quiet around Philip when he was on stage. And then Philip's character, and then you come on, and Philip in the audience started distracting everyone. I dropped my ring, he said. Everyone
Finally. I feel like what's funny about the whole Philip thing, obviously we don't speak anymore, which is kind of sad, but hilarious,
You started your DJ career with Philip, though, didn't you?
Kind of, yeah. I mean, we were the only people he knew that had records, and he knew that he could get us to do it for free drinks. He didn't want to pay anyone. So me and Jeremy bought our cardboard box full of
From Hazy
45
Fantasy.
down to, Planets, and we played the music. Yeah. And we only did it really because the DJ box was quite high up. So it was like being in the pulpit. It meant that everyone could see what you were wearing. You were kind of like the belle of the ball. And that's where I met Mikey. That's where Mikey Craig, we'd found out I'd been in Bow Wow Wow, seen in the music papers that I'd been fired. And he turned up and said, do you want to be in a band? And that's how it's literally started, from Planets. So, I mean, I owe Philip everything and nothing.
I mean, we're jumping around a bit. But
I'm just wondering, while we're on, do we want to do the art incident now?
Well, just to let people know who Philip is. So Philip was, during punk time, he
Knock,
was...
knock.
Who's there?
Philip Salon.
Philip Salon who?
That's showbiz.
Right.
It's one of his jokes.
I mean, Philip is, he was a sort of club goer. He was one of the early punks.
Philip was the first freak I ever saw.
Freak, yeah.
So I was with my girlfriend. We'd gone to the Lyceum to a soul night, and it was during the punk. And we were wearing all ripped socks and pins and everything. And obviously, when we got to the Limelight, they were like, you can't come in dressed like that. So we were on the street, just lost, knowing where we're going to go. And this very camp man, not Philip, but another man called Stephen, walked up to us and said, oh, you look great. Where are you going? We were like, oh, we couldn't get into the Lyceum. He took us to Bangs I think it was a Monday night, and Philip Salon was in there dancing on a podium in a velvet skirt with this kind of Egyptian collar and these horns. And I was like, he's our new best friend. And we followed him around all night. And then eventually my girlfriend Laura followed him into the ladies' toilet, and he was using a black coal pencil for his lips. And I said, borrow it off him, asked him to borrow it. And that's how we became friends. He came out and he was like, where are you from? And I was like, Elswood. Ooh, the sticks, and just hilarious. And he became my best friend.
Now we should mention it.
And now my biggest enemy.
Okay, yes. So the art incident.
So Philip has been painted for the National Portrait Gallery, and everyone was raving about the painting, and I thought, I've got to go and see it. And I decided that I would do a fake sort of Just Stop Oil protest and pretend to throw paint over Philip's portrait, which my friend Dean Stockins, who does all my, sort of technical stuff, he basically did it, and I posted it. And I said, I've been arrested. It was a joke, it was just, I thought it might make him laugh.
Stop Philip.
Yeah, hashtag Just Philip.
I watched it last week, and then I Googled you and the news just to see if it had really happened. It looks real to me. It looks like you're throwing soup into the paint.
AI is fantastic. I mean, it's so good what you can do. It's amazing.
But I just want to say Broadway again, because I saw the photographs, and you play the impresario of the club, don't you? And you look amazing.
Howard Ziedler, yeah, it was a lot of fun. It's very hard work doing musical theatre. I mean, it's 8 shows a week. You don't have a social life. You have to totally commit to what you're doing. But I loved it. I think it kind of helped me. When you do things like that, it helps you do your own gigs better. You get more confidence because when you're doing a live show with a band, sometimes, I don't know if that ever happens to you, you sort of get a bit lost on stage and you don't really know what to say. And, and through doing the musical, it's really helped me kind of be more confident about performing as, myself. So it was really worth doing.
But I remember years ago, I did a big Bosnian charity gig with you. I don't know if you remember. You played it as well. And Nigel Kennedy and Jimmy. But the thing I always remember about you is you came out and there was this real society audience and everything. And you had this thing of, right, I've got to make them mine immediately. I'm going to turn this into my audience. So, and I'm wondering if that's something you get with musical theatre as well.
I think that's been a kind of sort of bit of a journey over the years, because a few years ago I did a gig and I saw a clip of the gig and I looked like I was lost. I'd done this Carfest gig and I looked like I was lost. So I actually I started taking acting lessons. And it really kind of transformed the way I perform. I'd kind of just felt like I need a bit more confidence. So I started working with this guy called Charlie Walker Wise from RADA. That's why I booked him, because I thought RADA, proper. And he really did change the way I perform. He made me realise that as a singer, when you go on stage sometimes, you make it all about you. You're like, oh, my voice, and if I'm going to sing in tune, and it's all paranoia. And what he taught me to do was expand the moment. Look at the band, look at the crowd, look at the venue, make it bigger, don't make it smaller, and realise that people are on your side. And once you realise that the audience is there to support you, it takes away that kind of weird fear. So I don't really get that anymore. It's really different. I used to come off stage screaming, throwing my hat on the floor. Like, I was such a Shirley Temple. And now it never happens. And that's purely because I learned to look at what I do in a different way. So it was really a good move for me to take acting lessons. I did it for 4 years. Yourself.
Yeah, I saw stills from that show, actually, and it didn't look like you. I mean, I know you had makeup and everything, but you just looked so dynamic. And
you have to forget who you are. And of course, when you're famous for doing something else, stepping into a role like that in Moulin Rouge, you have to get over yourself. I can't explain it. You just have to get over who you think you are. You have to forget who you are and become that person. It took a while, but eventually I was like, no, I get it. I'm really enjoying it. It started to really change. Second time was even better for me. I really loved it.
And the lifestyle of hanging out in New York as well.
Oh, I love New York as well. It's such a great city. And people are really friendly, actually. You think, if you watch the news, you think everyone in America's fighting with each other, and then you go there and people are actually lovely.
Oh, no, before the phones, I remember there used to be a thing in New York, is if you look at a map for a second, there are 10 people immediately around you going, where do you need to go?
Whereas in London, it's like, haven't you got an iPhone? If you ask someone the way, they look at you with hatred.
When was the first time you went to New York?
Actually, your manager, I was walking down the street in London and Steve told me that they were playing Do You Really Want to Hurt Me on the radio. And he was like, really? He was like, yeah, they're playing it on the radio. And I was like, oh my God. And when I first went there, I was like, spotty little oik. I had no clue. Anything. I went to America and it was so overwhelming, going to CBS Records and meeting all the, heads of the company and, just the way they kind of dealt with me. They didn't really get me at all. Like this little bitchy queen from London. It was hilarious.
I mean, let's go back to that period. There were no obviously gay artists, were there really? I mean, it was all sort of hidden.
I think what's funny about like the 70s, obviously I feel like I'm a real 70s kid. That was where I really learned to be myself. And I've been thinking about this recently. A lot of my heroes were straight men who were playing around with the sexual boundaries, like Mark Bolan, Bowie, Steve Harley. There were so many people that were really straight guys, but they knew to sort of tap into that sort of, queer zeitgeist underground thing, and they were the people that brought me the message of you can be whoever you want to be. But ironically, when I look back, a lot of my heroes were like straight blokes in makeup.
Yeah.
And I think the 70s, I don't remember it being so much of an issue. You know what I mean? When we went to the Blitz, boys kiss boys, girls kiss girls, there was kind of like a freedom that it wasn't so explained as it is now. people weren't so uptight about it, or maybe it was just that crowd. But I don't remember people being that uptight about it.
I suppose I remember going before the Blitz. I remember going to, I suppose, gay clubs like on the one on Charing Cross Road,
Heaven, Global Village,
So,
Shagaramas.
all as soul boys, we'd go to those clubs anyway. As straight boys that I was, going to those clubs.
I remember that. When I was a bit younger. It was always cool.
It was cool
up until the mid-80s.
I mean, you didn't always pick up or anything. People would be like, "No, sorry, I'm not gay," but they weren't annoyed about it. They were like, I felt like people weren't so uptight about it.
So actually, it's a really good point to sort of think about how this Blitz thing developed. And, people talk about Shagaramas, don't they? I mean, they as being a key club. I never went there, but what was the first sort of clubs that you started going to in London? Because
Once I met Philip Salon, that was where my clubbing life began.
What year is this? Like 77 or something?
Well, I met Philip when I'm always a bit younger than everyone because my birthday's in June. So when I saw Bowie, it was just before I was 12. When I met Philip, I think I was 15 and a half when I met Philip. But I thought I was 16. But actually, I was always a bit younger than everyone. And actually, I said I had a girlfriend at the time called Laura. A couple of days after meeting Philip, obviously, I rang up Philip, dumped the girlfriend, went out to a gay club with Philip. And the first club he took me to was Madame Louise's, which was in Poland Street. And there was this kind of after hours kind of tiny dive run by this Russian woman. And, the first night I went there, the Pistols were there. Susie was in the loo. It was just like, oh my God, Billy Idol walked in. It was just like literally Sue Catwoman, Berlin. It was, all these people that I'd seen in fanzines and magazines. I remember Philip going, you're so impressed, aren't you? And I was like, Sue Catwoman. I mean, I have my Sue Catwoman. And that's
yeah.
I think she's disowned herself from it now, which is quite sad.
What kind of music did they play at Madame Louise's?
Everything. A lot of disco, like Cherchez la Femme, things like that, Funky Town. I don't know what was out at that
Paris
time. But it
would have been kind of like that was a sort of influence.
Yeah, a lot of disco.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of disco, lots of pop music. Some punk stuff, but not at Louise's.
There wasn't much punk stuff to play, was it? That's the thing.
Things like, do you remember Is That All There Is by Christine X? Remember that version of the Doris Day song? Like kind of, things like that. Or
was there cabaret?
Some cabaret, yeah. We used to play cabaret at Planets. We used to play The Lonely Goat Herd to try and clear the dance floor.
Oh, the cabaret, the soundtrack.
The soundtrack. Yeah, you'd hear that. We'd play that to try and clear the dance floor, and it would just fill the dance floor. Put on The Lonely Goat Herd, and the place just, nobody wanted to leave. So there was a kind of, I feel like there's this really liberal attitude to music in some clubs. You know what I mean? People weren't so po-faced about it. You could play anything.
I know that you mentioned cabaret the film, right? So, because I think that was a bit of an influence on all of our generation as well.
Huge.
This kind of Weimar Republic, decadent,
absolutely.
And I know that later there was a big exhibition. What's it called? It's called Sucklichkeit, I think it's called. It was a German, Otto Dix and all those people were all in it. And I think a lot of people went to see that. And if you look at those paintings, they look like the Blitz Club,
Also Sally Bowles, the kind of whole sexual... Yeah, undertones in cabaret. The two boys. When we were young when that came out, so it was a really big influence on me. Defying, John Waters. All those kind of movies. Going to the Scala, watching John Waters movies, thinking America was going to be like that. Like everyone was going to look like Defying, and it was the opposite. But anyone that was exotic, anyone that was outrageous, was an influence. In movies. In bands, on the street. I used to go up to, South Moulton Street on the Red Bus Rover just to look at people. I'd get the bus and go up there. I wasn't even allowed to go to the West End when I was like 14, 13. And I'd go walking around the streets just so I could look at.
Yeah, because it was all individual shops then, wasn't it? All those one-off design
Chelsea
shops.
Girl
Yeah.
Was like a place where you could see, a few freaks. Yeah. It was great.
Yeah, and because then you got the Rocky Horror Picture Show is showing all the...
Huge. I mean, I remember the first time I went to the Blitz, I met Richard O'Brien in the men's toilets.
Why was he in the men's toilets?
Well, he was having a pee. He was having a pee, and I was like, I know you. So impressed. It was like, it was kind of that sense of anything that was weird was exciting.
Yeah, of course.
Because, you come from suburbia, you think that's all there is. And then you start moving outside going up to the West End and meeting, all these mad characters. Remember seeing Danny LaRue in this little club in Leicester Square. Just it was all very exciting.
What about the Thems? Because there was this group of people, weren't they, that ended up being called the Thems.
It was a Peter York thing, wasn't it? Like a sort of.
They might have been a bit older.
Dougie Fields.
Dougie Fields, I knew.
Yeah, it was a sophisticated Chelsea kind of world.
Zandra Rhodes was in that.
Love Zandra Rhodes.
And they used to go to the Zanzibar, I think. That was their kind of hangout. But
Johnny Rosa, who is, kind of still around. Do you know Johnny Rosa?
No, I don't.
Amazing character. Stevie Hughes, a sort of makeup artist. Slightly older than me, maybe 3 or 4 years older than me. So they were a little bit, we always impressed.
I remember they got let into the Blitz as well because they were interesting characters. And if you think about Dougie Fields, that style of painting he was doing, which had a kind of Otto Dix kind of like German feel to it, ended up being a real look in the 80s, that bright block colour, and...
Yeah, a bit Picasso here as well.
And he had that wonderful muse that he used to be with all the time, Luciana,
I remember her really well. Yeah, bless her.
But the most interesting about that is like where you ending up with the sources is from what we talked about how all movements tend to start with a club, right? And a band in a club in London. And so Dougie Fields, there's your link to the UFO club.
It is, yeah.
Or straight to the Blitz.
And because Syd Barrett lived with Dougie Fields.
Yeah.
And that's, in fact, the Syd Barrett solo album, that's him in Dougie Fields' house.
Andrew Logan, all these characters.
Well, that's a good one as well, because that was another opening up of kind of cross-sexuality, wasn't it, with the alternative Miss World that he used to put on every year.
Yeah, the first time I ever met Defying was on the King's Road with Andrew Logan. Me and Marilyn were up the King's Road and we saw Defying out of drag, but we knew it was Defying. We ran up to her. And she was like terrified. We were like, "We love you." She's like, "Well, thank you, sweetie." It was just so funny, and then obviously saw her in the alternative Miss World. It was amazing. I loved Defying. I was absolutely a massive fan. And sadly, I never met Defying, but there's a really funny clip of Defying at Heaven, and she says, "Hey, what do you think of Boy George?" And they were like, cheering. She goes, "I want to buy myself a Rolls Royce so I can run it over him." And then she goes, "Oh, she's all right." He had no idea that I loved. I got a Defying tattoo on my arm, but I'm not getting it out. But I love Defying, and it was such a shame that she never knew what a fan I was of her. I thought she was amazing.
So should we? Sorry. So should we get to the? So you were clearly. Is it that both of you were there for night one?
Well, we were primed. Yeah, I think. Well, Billy's.
I mean, how did we build to this? Yeah, Billy's was the start of it.
I wasn't at the opening night of the Blitz, but I was living in Birmingham with Martin Degfield. I'd moved to Birmingham, and I was sort of commuting back and down from Birmingham. So I was going to the Rum Runner and all those clubs in Birmingham.
Interesting.
Because I met Martin Degfield on a punk weekender in Bournemouth. Again, it's always like...
Lead singer of Zig Zig Spot.
Yeah, well, right? Martin was like uber freak, like Philip. He was the second person that I saw and went, oh, he was wearing stilettos, he had these massive shoulders, he had this kind of quiff, no eyebrows, he looked like a skull. And again, I was in Bournemouth and I was like, look at that man, he's amazing. And so we just ran after him. I ran up to him and he was lovely. He was really sweet and friendly because he was from the Midlands. And so he gave me his number. And then I started going up to Birmingham with a bunch of us used to go up to Birmingham to go to these clubs. And I ended up moving up there. And then the Blitz opened.
But that's really funny. So the Rum Runner, before Blitz.
I went to the Rum Runner, yeah.
But it was, obviously wouldn't have had any sort of... What was the vibe of the Rum Runner then?
Duran.
I met Annie Lennox, I think, when she was in The Tourists, the Rum Runner, because we used to go to all the bands and, always tries to get in the dressing room. We were always trying to get in the dressing room. So the kind of
Birmingham equivalent of the Blitz. When
Birmingham, well, it was kind of running around. I don't know if it was, I think the Rum Runner might have been before. I'm not sure. Because a lot of it...
Seismic. That's seismic.
That's Front Page News.
Changes everything.
I can't say for sure because that period in time, so many things happened. Do you know what I mean? Like
I know. When you're young, it's like everything. Stuff that would be 10 years now.
We tend to rewrite history. So it's like, whatever. But I remember coming back to London on the coach and hearing Duran Duran on the radio, and being like, oh my God, they're not new romantics, because I think that was after I kept going up to Birmingham.
Yeah, that was definitely after.
And I was going to the Blitz, obviously, but I remember...
No, because you had a trip. There was a trip. You all went up there, wasn't there? You went. There was a Blitz trip.
There was. We Spandau played there.
But I was not speaking to Steve when he opened the Blitz. We were having a sort of feud. So I was like, will I get in?
Okay, we need to go back.
Will I get in?
So the first time I saw you, George, would have been when Steve Dagger told me through Simon Withers, who's a contemporary, that there was this club, a Bowie night club, and there's a flyer that I remember which said, "Jump aboard the night train," and it Bowie night Tuesdays at Billy's, which was this little dive bar on Mead Street. Just it became Gossips, I think. I mean, in the old days, it was a club. It was called the Gargoyle Club, and you'd have
upstairs was the Gargoyle,
and you'd have Noel Coward would be there, and Evelyn Waugh, and people like that.
And you had the Bat Cave, big golf club
really
as well.
Want to me video?
Yeah, I remember going to Billy's.
So I remember going. So I went there that night, and I was a sort of soul boy at that. I'd been through punk, and now I'm a soul boy, and I dressed up in whatever I thought was right. And there's Stephen on the door, and he's like a Cossack with a quiff, and he's got this. I mean, I couldn't believe where these clothes came from. I had no idea what he was wearing. I know he worked at this clothes shop called PX on Covent Garden.
Oh, that was already going.
Yeah, that was already going.
There was also Fox's Costumers. They used to have these sales. We'd all march down there and buy whatever we could or nick things. That was the big, stealing from Oxfam. Can you believe it?
So I went down to this. I got in for somehow it was £3, and I went down the stairs, and I remember hearing whatever it was, some pulsing, slow Kraftwerk, electronic piece of music. I remember seeing two boys dancing together, holding hands, doing this slow jive, like an Elizabethan jive, right? I don't know where that dance had ever come from. I'd never seen it before. Do you know when it was a guy called Andy
Polaris?
Well, he was Andy Polaris and another. A mixed race guy that he always used to hang out with.
Can't remember. There's so many people that I see photos of them, and I remember them, but I don't know their names.
But you were there.
Oh yeah, totally, yeah. Because so the first time I met Steve Strange, I was with Jeremy Healy on Wardour Street going to the Vortex. I knew about Steve Strange, but he was Steve Harrington then. He wasn't Steve Strange, he was Steve Harrington. He had that band called the Moors Murderers.
Oh yeah.
And me and Jeremy were going to the Vortex, and we saw Steve Strange, and he was wearing bondage trousers and the Spider-Man boots, which had just come out.
Oh, the sex boots.
Yeah, the sex boots. So they'd just come out, and we were like, oh, look at that man's boots. And we followed Steve up Wardour Street like a pair of fans going, look, it was amazing. I knew who he was because I'd seen him in The Enemy or something, and went to see him. I can't remember. There was a band called Mother's Pride on at the Vortex. They used to have this song called The Crawley Bugs Are Coming. Subi. Do you remember Subi? Yeah. That kind of early punks. And Steve jumped up on stage and was like, drunk and whatever. And that was the first time I ever saw Steve Strange. But he wasn't Steve Strange then. He was Steve Harrington.
So what happened? You followed the buzz, right?
Followed him up the street, kind of just, I don't think we spoke because I think in those days you didn't really speak to people unless you were, on their level. We weren't quite, we were sort of still in the fan area, because we were sort of just starting to go to those sorts of clubs, and I was always really excited when I saw someone I'd seen, in The Enemy or in a magazine, and Steve was a little bit of a name. And there were some other Welsh guys that used to come up all in rubber. There was this Welsh contingent that used to come up from Wales.
That club at Casablanca in Tiger Bay. Mark Jones.
Amazing. Yeah, I remember with the rubber trousers and rubber vests and piercings, and there was so many things going on at that time. Nicole Hearn in Earl's Court. We used to jump around because being gay, you would go to gay clubs, then you go to a punk club. The thing about Philip, he would drag you all over London. And Philip I remember one of the funniest things about Philip, used to have these plastic bags all clothes in. And he always used to say, I can't be seen in this outfit again. So whatever club we went to, we'd get in a cab and he'd literally tip the bag on the floor and start changing. And, imagine how exciting that was when I was 16 years old. I mean, I thought Philip was legendary.
Yeah. So what was your first, what got you to Billy's and to that scene?
Well, through punk, really. It was, I had a friend in Blackheath who was in the Moors Murderers. I can't remember her name. She lived near Blackheath train station. You used to bump into people. I remember the first time I saw Jeremy Healy, I was late for work. I was on a bus to Lewisham and I had white spiky hair and, kind of was going off to work. And Jeremy was going to school. And I remember he had these like brothel creepers on and big orange socks. And I just clocked them, because it was all that fashion detail.
Yeah.
If you saw, he's got a school uniform with brothel creepers. And he walked past me on the bus and went, like your hair. And I went, like your shoes. And then a couple of weeks later, I saw him at Charing Cross Station. And then Myra I met in the Oxfam shop in Blackheath. You kind of just saw people. If you saw people, you know, you'd be like, oh, can I talk to them? You know, because a lot of weirdos weren't that friendly because we were so used to hostility. So you weren't sure who you should speak to. But, you know, I slowly started to realise there were people around where I lived that were fellow weirdos like Jeremy, Myra, and you just met people through them, you know, but mostly going to punk gigs. That was the beginning, I remember going to see Gang of Four at Ulu, and I was obsessed with Susie.
There she is on your arm.
And so people used to think I was her because I used to dress exactly like her, like everything along the sleeves, out of the jacket. And I remember once I went to the Ulu and someone chucked a pint of beer over me because I was wearing makeup. Like, you ain't a punk, ruined my hair. So it was, you know, there was that kind of weird period where we'd been punks and then it was this whole new thing was happening. I don't know, it just kind of...
Yeah, because I remember when I first saw the Pistols and the main audience, the Bromley contingent, didn't look like punk became, you know,
they were like students.
It was kind of commercialised. They were much, they were very fashion orientated as well, you know what I mean? Like,
but I remember like in Woolwich, when I was walking around in like my pyjamas with a, you know, pacifier in my ear and safety pins, people weren't hostile because they thought it was like student rag week. They try and give you money. They didn't realise why you were dressed like that. I mean, they thought it was for some, you know, fun purpose. They didn't realise it was a movement.
But did Billy seem original and therefore Blitz as well, with the music at least? Did it seem like there was something that was...
It was so exciting. It was so exciting, you know, and of course we all acted like we didn't give a shit. I was like, well, everybody thought it was about them, you know. That was the hilarious thing about that, because it was quite a small club. Even the Blitz, when you think about it, wasn't a massive scene, but there was a lot of ego in a small space. You know, it was a lot of people who thought they were the most important thing in the world. I think everyone thought that.
What was the Blitz? What was the layout? What was the building?
The Blitz was an old wine bar.
Yeah.
And
Great
Steve
Queen Street.
took it over.
I know. It's not what became
night was
Browns, is it?
Yes, it is.
What night
Browns
was the
okay.
Blitz? What night was the Blitz?
Tuesday.
So Steve took it over. We often went there like on other nights for free food.
Just yeah, because what happened on other nights? Were there any other club nights? Or was it just,
no, but Steve used to say, "Oh, come to the Blitz and we'll feed you." So often he'd take us there. We'd have dinner there because obviously he had that club, and it was just, you know, it was a small scene, but you knew people. You know, somehow you found out what was going on. You know, through.
I suppose we have to think Rusty Egan was the reason that music was being played.
Love Rusty.
You know,
what I love about Rusty, every time I see him, he tells me the story of his life, and I'm like, Rusty, I was there.
But he was DJ, and he'd gone to Berlin, and he'd come back with all this.
We used to call him Captain Biggles because he used to wear these amazing like 50s like the leather jackets, and he had that great hair.
Yeah.
I remember once we were on a train station going somewhere, and me and Marilyn were ribbing him, and he nearly beat me up. Rusty was like, because we were just winding him up so much, like calling him Captain Biggles, and you know, just. Obviously, I've known him for so long. I love Rusty.
But as I remember, as we started to go, like it would build. And eventually I remember going on one Tuesday night, you know, this is 1978, 79, and there'd be news film crews from Japan outside and stuff like that. You know, there was a sense that we were responsible for the next, whatever was going to come next.
I think that, you know, each generation kind of deconstructs the previous one. Because if you listen to a lot of like punk music, you realise that it's really the New York Dolls turned inside out. If you listen to the New York Dolls, it sounds like the Pistols, but without that kind of nihilistic kind of teenage
Well, they were kind of doing
message.
Rolling Stones, but with glam.
You know, with glam. But I think because Malcolm managed managed New York Dolls, I think he saw the potential in the noise they were making, but he realised he had to add something extra, which was, you know, Johnny Rotten and Sid Vicious and... You know, and having worked with Malcolm very early on, you know, I knew how interesting and insane he was. Like, just, you know, I sat with him when I first joined Bow Wow Wow. I sat in this little flat in Queensway and Malcolm wrote a song in front of me about, it was called Sex Gang Children. And it was about this plane journey where there were animals in the hold and they all broke out and had sex with the passengers. And he was literally telling me this, saying this is what the song's about. And I was like, He's so amazing. You know, just so, you know, Malcolm McLaren. I used to tell everyone he was my manager. He wasn't really, But it was just a great thing to say to people. I'm being managed by Malcolm McLaren. You know, I'm going to be really famous.
But I do think there was a sort of moment in the Blitz where everyone thought, you know, we're being looked at, and you know, maybe it's our turn to be the next, you know, musicians, the next designers, the new movement. Because there was always a sense of like, you know, there was this, you know, psychedelia turned into glam turned into punk. You know, there was an evolution.
The thing that's, if I just interject, the thing I think is interesting is the fact that all of this, right, the whole Blitz thing, the whole New Romantic thing, this comes so soon off. This is the thing that's rare. It comes so quickly. It's punk, and then we're straight into this.
78.
And you just, and which is not what happens with Youth Movements. And I'm wondering if it's because for all the energy and the bombast and the brilliant stuff about punk, is people going, actually, musically, we're in a bit of a cul-de-sac here. We need to kind of go somewhere else quickly.
I think a lot of it was to do with Bowie. I feel like punk was sort of Bowie with the mullet cut off. If you look at like punk haircuts, it's really just Ziggy with the back cut off. And, you know, I think Bowie was very important in terms of, you know, because he didn't stop. In those days, like stars kind of came to a point where they were over, but Bowie just kept coming back with more stuff. And even the fact that he came to the Blitz was, you know, I think so significant, you know, because...
What did you do when you came to the Blitz?
Well, I acted like I didn't give a shit.
So did I. I remember because the Blitz was on 2 levels, and I remember Steve taking him upstairs and loads of people running up there, and I stayed downstairs with my band, and we just went, well,
how embarrassing. These people are screaming. They're all like little fans. They were all screaming like it was like a pop concert. And I remember just being like, oh, I can't believe it, but actually wanting to scream.
And he auditioned people, really.
Steve came up to me in the cloakroom and he goes, DB wants to see you. But I couldn't get up the stairs. As I went to get up the stairs, it was just insane, and I couldn't get up there. So I ended up not being in that video, which at the time I was quite bitter about. But then I also told myself,
you don't want to be in it.
It was a bad idea. I should never have been in it.
And I remember being really against people being in it, because I kept thinking, because at that time we were the beginning of Spandau Ballet, and we'd played the club. We were kind of house band, if you like, you know, and I just felt, you know, we don't want him to get in the way.
I hadn't played a note, but I also took the same point of view. I was like, oh, I'm going to be famous. I can't be in a Bowie video, although secretly.
And I felt he was stealing our fashion at that point.
Oh, maybe. No,
I
never thought that. I always felt like we were there because of Bowie.
Yeah. I mean, look, the early look was definitely down to, you know, 78 Bowie plays Earl's Court, and that look he had on with the big baggy trousers. Everyone wanted a copy of that.
I feel like
that was the Enemy advert, 18 pleat Bowie pegs. That was it.
Oh, well. I mean, you know, I think obviously I'm the world's biggest Bowie fan. I'm sure you are. So, yeah, I mean, there was a period where I was like, because I remember going to see him in concert somewhere when he did Glass Spider, and this later on, and I'd given an interview and I said, oh, Bowie's like Harrods now, he's just there. And he read it and was furious. And then a few years later, I wanted to sign some albums for me. And he said to my friend, oh, but Boy George hates me. And my friend said, no, he fucking worships you. Like, you're an idiot. Read his book. So he looked at my book and realised like, I was like an Uber fan, and he signed these albums for me. But, you know, it's amazing. He read that quote and was furious. Yeah. And of course, he read it.
He knew. He knows everything.
Yeah.
I mean, at this exhibition that's starting this month at the Design Museum, you are the poster boy. There's a great big picture outside the museum, as you go down the stairs, and it's the famous Circle Line party that was filmed somehow by someone, I'm not sure, some documentary maker, and you're wearing the amazing Stephen Jones headdress.
Odysseus. Well, it was.
So Stephen, let's just mention Stephen as well.
Stephen Jones was slightly older than me, and he was part of that Warren Street crowd, like Kim Bowen, Lee Sheldrick, you know, who to start with we didn't really like, because we were like from Woolwich, and we thought they were like art student, fashion student, stuck up, and they didn't like us. And then Jeremy started sleeping with Kim. And that was our in to Warren Street, because I was Jeremy's best friend. So up until the point that Jeremy started hanging out with Kim, we hated Warren Street people. We were like...
So this is a grand squat, isn't it?
Yeah,
Warren
grand squat where they all lived. We were like, they're so stuck up, you know, art students. We were pretty scathing. And then Jeremy started sleeping with Kim, which we thought was like sleeping with the enemy. But then eventually I became really good friends with Kim, and she had a massive influence on me.
Yeah.
She was first to play me Nina Simone. That was like a real, moment for me, hearing her playing Baltimore in her bedroom, smoking out the window, just being completely...
But it was quite beautiful in there, wasn't it? All painted white.
And Kim was amazing. She'd come out, with her breasts out, with her nipples painted mauve. We used to go on the tube. She was dressed as like Queen Elizabeth I.
Yeah.
It was insane.
Anyway, there's this party, isn't there, on the Central Line?
The party on the Central Line, I don't know who threw it and how I ended up on it, but I was always, if there's a party, I'm going to be there. And it was just going around and around on the tube, getting drunk.
It was Steve Strange's birthday. There you go.
And the outfit, so the Bodicea outfit.
We have here, actually, George.
But there's a story.
Has lent this.
But there's a story to this. So me and Marilyn were booked to be in this cabaret that was going to go to France. And I was playing Bodicea. You remember from Jubilee?
Yeah.
Jordan.
Of course.
I was obsessed with Jordan. So I was sort of playing Jordan and I was singing, I had like a trident and a shield. I had the toga. Marilyn was playing Marilyn Monroe. I was doing Mark Bolan, Bowie. So all these costumes were made for this cabaret. And then Marilyn met this bloke and fell in love with him and decided he wasn't going to France. Ended my career instantly. So I stole all the costumes.
So Stephen Jones, who becomes Milner. Sorry, I'm off mic.
Well, Kim Bowen was...
To the Queen herself.
Yeah, well, Kim Bowen was Stephen's muse. Oh. So you'd always see Kim in these incredible hats, and I always wanted one. And this was my first Stephen Jones hat, which was paid for by this cabaret. That didn't happen.
So you're actually... I think someone's to take that away. It's too valuable. So you're wearing this on the poster. You wore it on the Central Line. So Mind the Gap, you had to it's like...
Mind the feathers.
Right? Mind the feathers.
I wore it as much as I could because there was a point where you couldn't wear it again. Once you'd been out in it twice, it was a bit like, oh, she's wearing it again. Because in those days, it was so important.
If you Philip Salon, you wouldn't have worn it.
Although I loved it, I really only wore it a couple of times. I went to the opening of there was a premiere I wore it to, and then on the tube, and then it was kind of put in the cupboard.
Was everything you just wear it once, and then you think that's for the V&A?
Some things were repeated. You could mix and match, but something like that was too obvious to wear again.
Yeah.
Well, there was a sense of energy in that space, wasn't there? I mean, obviously we've started, we then become that band, and you come to a first few of our gigs at the age.
I remember you guys coming to Warren Street doing a photo shoot in the hallway.
Oh, those was that your first photo shoot?
Yeah.
And I was leaning over the staircase going, who the fuck are this lot?
No, you didn't. You said that as well, but you also said, I can sing better than your fucking singer. So I said, well, get a band. And you did.
It was so funny because I remember going to your early gigs, but I remember going to see Sade on the back of a lorry and, outside the Beetroot.
Strength.
Yeah, and going, those going on the rubbish. They're never going to get anywhere. I was such a bitch.
Well, when we first went to New York, she came with us in 81, and she came as she was one of the students from St. Martin's, and she was modelling the clothes, and she didn't even know she could sing at that point. I mean, did you know you could sing properly? Did you have ambitions?
I was always singing from a kid, and people always said I had a good voice, but I felt like I was one of the last people to kind of start a band. I was kind of watching all my friends starting these bands, even from the punk days, even watching Steve, and
it was Visage.
It never really appealed. I never thought, I should start a band. It was kind of an accident.
Because that's not what the scene was about for you.
Well, I wasn't particularly career-minded. Yeah. I didn't really want a career, because it was sort of a punk. Who wants a job? He wants to have a career. It was so...
Well, not even a career. It's just like for you, Garrick, I think everything was driven by music, wasn't it? It was trying to find a... Whereas for you, it was just a work.
Well, when you have a gang in a band, it becomes more realistic. Mm-hmm. For me, I was hanging around with musicians, Kurt Brandon, different people, and I was like watching these people starting bands. It took me a while to go, I should start a band. That's what I should do. So it was slightly accidental, but it wasn't that I wasn't ambitious. I wanted to be famous. I think originally I wanted to be like a makeup artist. I wanted to be a fashion designer. I wanted to work in PR, anything that kept me in that world.
You were a massive character. I remember, there were kids who wanted to be designers. There were, and a lot of them are in this show now. Melissa Kaplan and Stephen Linnard, but you were such a massive character in that room.
I was loud. Giorgio Loud.
It's an example of what a massive character you are, right? So this is in the exhibition as well, and it's his Donna, which I don't even know this magazine. Do you know?
So the story of this photo...
And you're on the front
Let
cover.
me see.
A very young you. What year is this?
This is about 79, maybe. Maybe 79.
Eccentricity and...
But it should have a date on it.
What does it say? Eccentricity and...
Transvesticism.
Right.
So I lived in Goode Street. I was living in a windowless room.
This is December 80.
So it's 80, yeah, so 79, 80. I was living in Goode Street. A friend of mine had given me a room in her flat with no windows. It was her design room. She made leather goods, and I lived in her sort of fabric room. And I'd gone out to get a cup of coffee in the morning, and I saw someone from the clubs like looking amazing walking down the street, and I was like, where are you going? And so it was a massive photo shoot like up the road. And I was like, I haven't been invited. And Steve Strange had been the person picking all the people, and he hadn't picked me. So I went home, got myself ready, chucked on a kimono, put my hair up, turned up at the photo shoot. And Stevie Hughes was the makeup artist for the shoot.
All right.
So when I arrived, I had a little bit of makeup on, and Stevie was like, will you let me put some more makeup on you? I was like, yeah, sure. And he did all the spraying on my face, and I ended up getting the cover, which everyone was furious about. It was the cover of Donna and also Stern magazine, which is a German magazine. So it was my first ever cover, and I was like so full of myself. And I knew that I'd annoyed everyone because, you know, that was what it was all about, upstaging other people. I'm not sure if that was your mission, but it was definitely mine.
What did you think was? Did you feel any of this was happening? Were you? Because I know you never.
No, because I'm just that little bit. Yeah, I don't know. I might be the same age as you, but I was 17 in '79, and I didn't really know anyone in London. I'd been away. I'd been in America and stuff, and I just wanted to be in a band, and I lived in Waterloo. This is what's so annoying. I was only I remember playing at Gossips with my band. I fell into a mod revival band. First, I remember seeing you on telly being interviewed in some. It was one of those Tony Smith and Tony Wilson shows or whatever.
Was it called?
What was the one that goes?
There was a lot of these magazine programs that kind of were around.
And you were in the audience. I remember you talking.
I got barred from that TV show.
That was the first time I came across. What year was that? That was like 78.
I used to go every week dressed up and always trying to get on camera, and they barred me. They were like, no, not having you in here again. And I ended up sending in my early demos, and I had a letter from them saying, oh, we really love the noise you're making, but you're not quite right for this program. We had a lot of that, sending cassettes to people. We used to go into the NME and Melody Maker. I used to go in and tell them about my band.
That's what people did, wasn't it? I mean, I remember hanging out there. Neil Spencer. You could go meet Neil Spencer, the editor.
Yeah.
There's a lot of rejection, because people just didn't believe you. They were like, you ain't going to get anywhere looking at that. That's what I encountered a lot. Mm-hmm. Even Malcolm McLaren called me a Vauxhall Travern drag queen. And when I did get famous, he was so flabbergasted. He was flabbergasted. He couldn't believe it because he did manage me for a little bit.
Yeah, you were a lieutenant.
He didn't think I was ever going to get anywhere. And when I did, Adam and me.
What was your name?
Lieutenant Lush.
Lieutenant Lush.
So, Malcolm really got it wrong twice.
But he got it wrong quite a lot, actually.
But I still loved him. I think it was amazing, But he was like...
The Walt thing, for instance.
The people that were in that room, though, and there was a zeitgeist. Obviously, as you said, there was a Rum Runner in Birmingham, amazing Human League doing their thing in Sheffield. That was a real scene.
I went to see the Human League supporting. Am I allowed to say Gary Glitter at the Lyceum? They were supporting Gary Glitter. We went to see the Human League when Martin was in it. It was insane. It was the first band I'd ever seen without instruments. I mean, I guess music in those days was really exciting. Jeremy would play me records, so have you heard this band? It was so, we turned each other on to things.
Yeah, Martin Ware was it really ahead of the game?
Oh, I loved it. I still love him. He's amazing. We toured with him last year. And just those early Human League records, a massive Human League fan. Love the Human League. I mean, they're not the friendliest people in the world, but...
There's another exhibition book down there. What's that one? So this is when we kind of all went mainstream in a way, really, I suppose. This is Boy George's fashion and makeup book. This is great. This is like Magpie or Blue Peter, isn't it?
Yeah, it was quite exciting, though.
People, I mean, I don't want to get in trouble for this, but, people sort of think this is something that's, this only just been invented, but this was so camp. This was so openly gay and... about dressing up like a girl?
I remember going to America and doing the Jay Leno show, and he was basically saying to me, if I was your dad, I wouldn't be able to deal with you. And I said, what's there to deal with? You've got Liberace. Why do you think I'm weird? Because to me, Liberace was so much more outrageous than I was. But I think the difference was we were unapologetically queer. We weren't hiding it necessarily. I mean, we weren't... To begin with, I didn't tell people, but I thought it kind of was obvious. I didn't feel like I needed to tell.
The mainstream had embraced it by then. That's a kid's book.
The 70s was a sort of spare us the details culture. It's like my parents knew I was gay, but I was never to discuss it ever again. Once they realised I was gay, it was like, right, well, let's not talk about it.
There's a thing you said when you went on tour with Rod about how your mum left you a copy of...
The Killing of Georgie,
Georgie, yeah.
It was her way of saying, I get it.
Yeah.
But, my parents were quite cool about it, but they didn't want to talk about it, which for me wasn't an option. I wanted them to talk about it. I wanted it to be open.
Yeah.
So I kind of did push it in their faces.
Your mum has an amazing story, what she went through.
Yeah.
Must have influenced you.
Well, my mum, to begin with, was obviously against what I was wearing. She used to stand in front of the door and stop me going out. I used to throw my clothes in a plastic bag over the fence, go out in my soul boy look, and then go to Laura's house and get dragged up and go out to clubs. And eventually, I think my mum realised it wasn't going to stop. So she started making me stuff.
But she was an outsider as well, wasn't she?
Well, she was, but, she was also a very talented seamstress. And I think because my dad stopped my mum from being who she wanted to be, seeing me do what I was doing kind of almost excited her. So in the end, she sort of became a collaborator, and she would make me things. I'd come home with like furniture fabric and say, make me some trousers out.
My mum made me a pair of trousers for the Blitz. I remember just sticking a load of white paper together and drawing these great, basically Bowie pants,
Yeah.
And she stuck these two pieces of material together because she was a seamstress as well. And I remember putting them on. I had some kind of buckle at the side. I remember going to the loo and then realising they had no flies in them.
My mum made me a pair of Union Jack bondage trousers. Like, I borrowed them off Philip. Philip had a pair. I borrowed them for like 2 weeks. My mum cut a pattern. I went round London to like industrial estates to try and find the right hooks and zips. They had to be exactly the same. I was going into places where they only did wholesale and they were like giving me it to get rid of me. And I was going there like all in my drag going, I need these zips. And when I first got famous, I was still wearing those trousers my mum made. And I saw Vivian in Paris. And she goes, I never made those. I said, no, my mum made them. And she inspected the trousers. She goes, tell your mother she did a brilliant job.
Amazing.
And Vivian was very cool like that. She wasn't precious. She kind of, I loved her, but that's why I loved her. She didn't care. She was very encouraging in terms of you doing your own thing,
I think it's funny that, nearly, I don't want to say nearly 50 years later, but 47 years later.
Nearly 50.
Nearly 50 years. You went on tour with Tony Hadley supporting you.
Yeah.
Just last year or this year?
Yeah.
With Culture Club.
And it was great.
How was that?
Absolutely great.
Amazing.
He's a Gemini like me.
He's got an amazing voice.
He has got an amazing voice. And I feel like, it's that, I think we've learned to kind of enjoy what we do. There's a big difference between the way I walk on stage now and how I did 10 years ago, 20 years ago. My first gig with Culture Club, I had my back to the audience. I sung with my back to the audience. That was absolutely foul-mouthed. I used to swear. I mean, I used to get heckled. You can imagine, like, birthday. I'd be like, fuck off. And, I was quite aggressive because you had to be.
Yeah.
And in those early days, we weren't anybody. So what do you think you fucking look like? We were playing in little pubs in like Essex and, we were setting up our own gigs, much like you guys were. And people used to like be quite offended by what we looked like and they couldn't take us seriously. But I've always said, I take myself seriously so you don't have to.
It's a great line, isn't it? Listen, thank you so much.
Amazing. Yeah, it's fun. And I still really kind of enjoy it. I think that's the thing, I still like celebrating it and, I live it still.
Are you
I haven't
gonna,
downsized.
Are you going to try and get to the opening of the exhibition?
1000%. When is it?
September the 20th, and I think it's going to run. It's running for like
no, it's
months.
that's the same night as my friend's birthday.
No, that's the opening's
The opening's
17th, I think.
17th. Well, if you invite me, I'll come.
Yeah. Because it's crazy. I just want to finish on this really, because what's mad is that this year you've got this exhibition opening up at the Design Museum, very serious, museum about that club we went to on a Tuesday night. You've got Lee Bowery was at the Tate, an exhibition on him. You've got an exhibition on the Face magazine at the National Portrait Gallery. It's strange, isn't it? All us stupid kids doing mad stuff has suddenly now become culturally heavy.
I feel like I'm still a stupid kid doing mad stuff, though. I feel like nothing's really changed for me. I mean, I enjoy it more now. Do you know what I mean? Because I see it for what it is. I don't take it that seriously. It's, I'm not really particularly interested in nostalgia. It's a big part of my life, but it doesn't guide what I do.
But it was obviously.
But that's like a great validation of what it was in a way, isn't it? It's like it was a fun thing that we all did, and it's a fun thing now.
Nostalgia is a racket.
Is that one of Philip Salon's lines?
No, one of mine. It is a racket, but it's one of those things you use carefully. I mean, I'm sure you say
when you do K-pop.
Well, I'm sure that was a trip to Korea, which was fantastic. Once I agreed to do it, I had the best time. I mean, I kind of have more fun now. So if I agree to do something, I just dive in. I don't kind of go with a bad attitude.
Thank you, George.
Thank you.
That was really great.
Yeah,
Thank you so much. Really enjoyed that.
We'll get you on again in 5 years' time.